Hi there, this is Crystal, and today I am creating a 12 by 12 layout just for fun. This is not for a design team. Basically, what I've decided is that I need to use some of the collections that I have that I've barely used. So my little craft space is overflowing, and if I don't start to use some of the things that I have, then I'm gonna have to get rid of them, and I don't want to have to do that. Not all of them, because they're just too beautiful, and I bought them because I loved them. So today I'm working with the Everyday Musings collection from Pinkfresh Studio. This was released earlier this year. I have quite a few pieces from it, and I've barely touched it. I've barely used any of them. So let me show you what I have. I had 2 sets of the chipboard frames, and I've used a few of each, and I've pulled them all out of the packaging and just put them in these little bags to make it easier to store, but I still have quite a few of those left. I have the journaling pockets, which I haven't used any of, the ephemera pack, which I've barely touched, the layered stickers, I've just used one of those, the puffy stickers I haven't used, the phrase stickers, I've only used 1 or 2 of these. I have the puffy alpha, which I have not used at all, and then also the puffy accents, which I have not used. So lots of product still here. These are the papers. I only have a few of them. I don't have them all, and I don't have the 6 by 6 pad. I just have the 12 by 12. So I have this one. This is Good Times. This is Present and Perfect. This is Happy Place, Full of Joy, and Time for Fun. So those are the papers I'm going to be playing with. This is the photo I'm going to scrapbook. It's fairly old. I don't remember the exact date. I'll have to look it up. But it's quite old. But I've never scrapbooked it, and I really liked the soft kind of pastel colors and how they went with the soft colors in this beach photo. So this is what I'm going to scrapbook today. I am going to use a sheet of white cardstock to start because you know me, that's just how I do things. So yeah, that is all as far as I've gotten in the way of a plan. So I'm just going to put you on fast forward and start to play. So I'm going to start by going through the few papers I have and trying to pick out some that I think I might want to use on this page. As you can see, I'm choosing almost all of them. I think I only eliminate 1, and there's no way I'm going to be able to fit all of these papers. So I think the best thing I can do is to create some kind of grid. So to cut them down into small squares and create a grid on the background, and then that way I'll be able to include as many of these patterns as I can. So I'm cutting them down to about 2 by 2, and they're double-sided, so I'll be able to use both sides of some of these depending on the colors and how they work on the page. I don't want it to be too busy, so I'm going to stick to a fairly limited number, although I say limited and I use still quite a few. So I'm just taking my trimmer and cutting them down to 2 by 2. I cut off a 2-inch strip of paper and then cut that piece of paper into 2 by 2 squares, and they don't end up perfect, which is fine. It still works. I'm not huge on making things absolutely perfect on my page. If the corners don't line up perfectly, it doesn't bother me too much, because it's handmade and it's meant to look a little bit imperfect. So I started with just those 2 papers, and then eventually I decided to add this one as well. I really love this this leaf pattern in this beautiful green color, but I also love the pink on the other side. This collection, I can't believe I haven't used it before now. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was busy. I guess that's what I was thinking, is that I've been busy and I haven't had a lot of time to scrap outside of design team obligations. So I had a few extra hours and was able to get a few things done more recently. Okay, so I've used both sides of that green paper and the blue floral, and then that kind of minty green paper as well, and I really like how it's looking so far. I knew I wanted to use this die cut as my title because I saw it in the package and I thought it would be perfect for this photo. So I grabbed that out just to lay it down and make sure I liked the way it looked before I adhere any of these squares down. So I'm just using my T-square ruler to roughly get things in the center of the page. So I'm starting with that center row. I'm getting it kind of equidistant from each side of the page and using it to kind of center it, and then you can see I pick it up. All that work I did was for nothing, so I have to do it over again, which is no big deal. I'm just adding some tape runner to the center of the squares because I'm pretty sure I'm going to stitch these down. I wasn't entirely sure yet, but I can always add more glue if I decide not to stitch, but if I decide to stitch and I've glued all around the edges, I'm going to gum up my machine. So I just added a little bit of glue and stuck them down just enough to hold them in place. So now I'm doing the same to the other side, and then I'll come back and fill in those center ones after I'm done. I thought this would be the easiest way to get things as lined up as possible. I'm mostly concerned that it's straight on the page, which is what that T-square ruler is going to help me do. And you can see I didn't bother to add squares in the center because I know my photo is going to go there and they would just be wasted. You would never see them. So I'm just leaving the center blank and just adding kind of a border. And when the page is finished, it looks like it's a complete, you know, square of squares. So, or rectangle of squares, that is. So it doesn't really matter that there's nothing there in the center. So just doing my best to get them lined up, mostly eyeballing these center ones because yeah, I'm just not that picky about things lining up. So I'm nearly done here with that part of it, and then I will add my photo back in and go from there. So I want to map my photo on something. I don't like it sitting just straight on the page. It looks a little awkward to me, but I don't want to cover up any of those squares because I want to see as much of that pattern as possible. So I decided to grab some vellum, which is going to add some softness around my photo and make it a little less harsh on the page, but also let you see all of the pattern through it. So that is what I'm going to use to map my photo with. And there you go. You can see that's all done. And then I do want to pop it up just to bring it up off the page a little bit, make it stand out a bit more off of those squares. So I'm using just some fun foam. This is foam you can buy from any big box store. It's super cheap. It comes in these little rectangles, and I just trim it down to whatever size I need it to be. My tape runner doesn't like to work on it, so I usually have to add tape runner to the photo itself and then stick the foam to the photo, and then that usually works pretty well. Okay, so now I'm going through the die cut pack that was in this collection and just kind of rifling through and picking out things that I think might work. I don't really have a plan beyond what I have on the page so far, so I'm not entirely sure where this is going to go. I'm just seeing what's here and trying to make decisions kind of on the fly as I lay things down and kind of audition them in different places. There are these gold like leaves, they're like sprigs in this pack, and I really love those, and I stuck one underneath the title in that corner, and I really liked how it looked coming off of that title or off of that corner, so I decided to add that, and then I found another one to add to the top. But I want to add something else with it. I'm just not sure yet what. So I've got some flowers stuck in there. I've got some other leaves stuck in there. Obviously not all of this is going to stay. I'll go back and edit through once I've gone through the whole pack. And that's usually how I do things. I throw a lot of things on the page and then I edit once I've narrowed down my options a bit more. Okay, so still looking at the other embellishments. I have the puffy stickers there. I was looking at those gold accent stickers. But first, I realized that my title needed somewhere to sit on that photo. So there are these ugly white chairs in the bottom corner of the photo that just kind of, they were stark white and they kind of drew your attention. I knew I wanted to cover those up with the title. The title didn't entirely cover it, so I decided I wanted something else behind it. I tried a little circle die cut that was in the die cut pack, but it was a little too busy, so I just ended up taking another one of those mint green squares and adding it behind my title, and then that also gave me the 3 repetitions. So there were 2 already on the background, and then this one adds a 3rd one, so you get that visual triangle of those mint green squares by adding one behind the title. So that's going to end up staying there. I haven't glued anything down yet, but I do know that I'm going to keep that there. So now, again, just editing through the die cuts that I pulled out, trying to figure out what other embellishments I might want to add to fill out those embellishment clusters. I also added a label to the top. I know I need a place to add my date. I had tried a couple pink ones, and then I had a yellow one. Eventually I'm going to go with this blue one with a gold border from the sticker sheet, the phrase sticker sheet. instead of the yellow or the pink. I thought the blue just blended in and stuck out a little bit less than the other two. I'm also going to add one of these hearts, and I played around with them a little bit. You can interchange the phrases on top of these hearts. They're layered, so you can just pull off the phrase on top if you want to switch them up and change the colors that are matched together. I did that at first, and then I ended up just going with one that was already on the sheet as is. So here is where I decide, yes, I do indeed want to stitch around these squares. So I'm going to pull out my sewing machine, and I don't make you watch the whole process, but I wanted to show you how I do it. So I store my sewing machine just on a shelf right below my desk, and I just pulled it out, and then I'm going to stitch around all 4 sides of all of these squares. And to do that, I stitch down one side, and then I leave the needle inside. I leave it down through the paper and turn the paper while the needle is still in place, and that keeps it from keeps you from having to try and match up the corners. That makes a crisp corner on each of the squares. So I'm going to do that for all of these, and it's not perfect because my machine is super old and it skips stitches sometimes, and also I'm not a great sewer, so I skip stitches sometimes. But it doesn't matter. It's homemade. It's imperfect. It's just the way it is, and I'm totally fine with that. So I'm showing you how I pull through the stitches from the front. I just use a little poker tool and grab the little loop in the back and then pull on it, and the stitch or the thread from the front comes through the back, and then I just adhere that with some washi tape just to keep it in place. And I'm going to show you another one, how I do that, another example, but I don't make you watch that whole thing. So fast forward here to the sewing all done with the threads all pulled through to the back and adhered, and now I can finally start adhering everything to the front. So I've got my photo in place. I have that label stuck in between the photo and the vellum just to add some dimension to the layers, and now I'm going to add my title. So I decided to pop up my title on some foam squares, again just trying to add a little bit more dimension and interest to the page. And so the green square is going to adhere directly to the photo, and then the title die cut piece is going to pop up off of that. So it'll add some shadowing and some dimension and interest to the page. Okay, so I'm just peeling off all those tiny little backings to the little foam squares. It's my least favorite part about using these squares is all that tiny little plastic waste, but oh well. So I really do like those gold sprigs behind the corners, so I'm going to go ahead and stick those down. I like the way that those look. I'm just using my tape roller to adhere those. It does get some tape on my desk, but it wipes right off, so I'm not too worried about that. And then I'm also going to add some little sprigs. So there were these little green and blue leafy sprigs in the die cut pack, and there were 2 of them, so I'm going to stick one of each, one into each corner, that is, just to again add some layering and interest to those corners. And then I'm going to add that excuse me, that heart, that layered heart as well to the corner, and I'm going to kind of overlap it with that label that's there just to connect that label. It was looking like it was floating out there in nowhere just a little bit, so I wanted that heart to kind of connect it and bring it into that cluster. I also added some foam behind there because of all the different layers. It didn't quite sit flat, but a little piece of foam fixed that problem. And then I'm adding one more little die cut. It's a little strip, and I can't quite remember what it says right now, and I can't see it on my tiny screen, but it had some kind of relevant phrase. Okay, so it's nearly done, but I feel like it needs a little bit more interest on the top and bottom. So I thought about adding some paper strips to the top and bottom. I cut a couple, one from the blue floral paper and one from that mint green paper, but it was too much to just add the strips. So I decided to instead just use my scissors and cut away a little slice of the bottom and a little slice of the top and just layer this paper behind there. So you just get a little peek of these pattern papers at the top and bottom. And then I used the edge of my scissors also to distress that. So it looks a little rough and just again add some more texture and interest to the page. And then that is almost it. I think I add some splatters here in a second, just some gold splatters. And then that's going to be it. So there are some close-up photos coming up. I hope you have enjoyed watching this process. If so, please do give this video a thumbs up. And if you aren't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, everyone.